Functions Part 5, working with tables. So you might see something in the GED that looks like this. An input-output table. So how do you work with this? Well, they're going to give you a formula, usually. It might look like this. Now they've got to give you some numbers in here. We're going to start with just numbers on the X row, but they could very well give you numbers on the Y row and have to solve for the X row. So let's say they give you those 5 numbers. This is when you need a calculator. You do not need to rely on your own mathematical skills in your head to do these, because you're going to end up getting some of them wrong, especially the ones I'm about to do that are more complicated. These might be easy to do, but you're probably not going to have one this easy on the test. They're going to be more like the second one I do. So how do you do this on the calculator? Well, first I'd rewrite it. The y equals doesn't matter. That's just going to be our answer at the end. What matters is on the right side. So I would rewrite it 3. Where the x is, we're going to put this number. We're going to put each of these one at a time. So we start with the 2. Anytime you substitute a number in for a variable, you put it in parentheses. Then don't forget to finish the rest of the problem, -2. So now I would go about putting that in the calculator. Pretty simple. Hit the 3 button, hit the parentheses, the left parentheses, the 2, the right parentheses, the minus button, and another 2, and then hit enter. So 3 times 2 is 6, minus 2 is going to be 4. Like I said, you can probably do this one in your head, but you need to practice putting it in the calculator. Just in case you've forgotten, or this is your first video, you need the TI 30 XS. Those usually run about $15 if you want to pick one up. You can download a virtual one for free with a trial membership where you can use it on a computer. I'm not sure if it works on cell phones or not. So on to the next number, 3. Rewrite the problem. You still use this function right here, but now you put in a 3 where there was a 2. So when you punch that in the calculator, it's going to do 3 times 3, which is 9. Subtract 2. It's going to give you 7. Move on to 0. 3, parentheses, 0, minus 2. 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 2 is -2. Next number is -4. So here's where it might get a little complicated. When you're entering this on the calculator, if it's a number in a parentheses like this by itself, or if it had a negative in front of the first number, you always have to use the negative key, not the subtraction key. If you're subtracting a number, you always have to use the subtraction key. You can't use the negative key. If you put a subtraction sign there, it'll give you a syntax error. If you put a negative there, it will multiply this 2 times this number instead of subtracting the 2 from this number. So on the calculator, you're going to hit 3, parentheses, negative. Now the negative is on a white button at the bottom of your calculator. It puts it in parentheses, so it looks like that. 4, right parentheses, minus, that's the gray button, not the white button, 2, and enter. And that will give you 3 times negative 4, which is negative 12. Negative 12 minus 2 is negative 14 on the calculator. And the last one is negative 5. So we do 3, negative 5 minus 2. Pause your video and try to enter that on the calculator yourself. And you should have got negative 17 if I did my math right. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15, minus another 2 is negative 17. So that would be what a full input-output chart looks like filled in. More than likely, you'll get one. Let's try another input-output. That looks like this. More than likely, you'll have a fraction. Could be a whole number like the other one, but probably not. You might have a negative in front of your slope. We talked about that. As your slope-intercept form, slope is there, intercept is there. But you're not graphing these, you're filling a table out. So they've got to give you these numbers, either the right side or the left side. So let's plug it in on the calculator. Start with the negative key. Oh, sorry, rewrite it first. Negative 1/2, parentheses, 2 is our first number, plus 5. So now on the calculator, you're going to hit the negative key, the fraction key, which looks like this. It's right in the middle of your gray buttons. It's got an N over a D, like that. Once the fractions line appears on your calculator, you hit the 1 key. Now you have to go back to your direction buttons. Remember, they're on the right side of your calculator. They look like this. They're sort of in a circle. Like that. And they've got arrows. So you have to hit the down arrow, this one right here. To get to the bottom of the fraction, once the 1 is on the top. Once you get to the bottom, you hit the 2 key. Now you've got to get out from under the fraction. So you hit the right key. And your cursor should be blinking beside the fraction 1/2. Next is parentheses. So left parentheses, 2, right parentheses, plus 5, enter. Before you hit enter, make sure on the TI-30XS, your calculator screen should look exactly like this right here. If it doesn't look exactly like that, then you've hit a button here wrong somewhere. So once you hit enter, it should have given you 4 as an answer. I'll do one more with you, and then I'll let you do the other 3. So go back to our original formula, 1/2, negative 1/2, parentheses. This time we're entering a 4, parentheses, plus 5. So on your calculator, you hit the negative, N over D, 1, down, 2, over, parentheses, 4, parentheses, plus 5, enter. And it should give you the answer 3. Now I want you to pause your video, and we'll do one at a time. Try doing the 0. Okay, when you enter that, you should have gotten positive 5. I'm going to show you how to do a negative, then I'm going to let you do that one on your own. So negative 1/2 again, parentheses. This time we're using negative 6 plus 5. So this time you've got 2 negatives, one here and one here. So you're going to hit negative 1. Oops, I said that backwards. N over D. 1. Down. 2. Over. Parentheses. Now, we got to put this negative in front of the 6. Don't use subtraction. So it's going to be the negative button again. 6. Parentheses. Plus 5. Enter. And it should give you positive 8. Go ahead and pause your video and try to solve this one on your own. And you should have gotten positive 9. Your first worksheet, we're doing basically the exact same thing. So I'm going to do a few with you, and then I'm going to let you do some on your own. So you're taking this number, plugging in where there's an x. So it's going to be negative 6, parentheses, 8, minus 2. When you plug that on your calculator, it would be negative 6 times 8, which is negative 48, minus 2 will give you a negative 50. So pause your video and work these 4 on your own. So that would give you positive 24 minus 2 would be 22, I think. That's going to give you negative 42 minus 2, which is negative 44. Negative 54 minus 2 is negative 56. And then negative 2. Now, you're not always going to have a number in front of the x. If the slope is 1, remember that 1 is going to disappear. So if there's nothing in front of the x, you're not going to put a number in front like this right here. You can still put it in parentheses just for practice. Parentheses aren't necessary, but it's a good habit. So on this one, it would be parentheses 8, parentheses minus 9. So it's just 8 minus 9. Punch that in on the calculator, you're going to get negative 1. So go ahead and solve. Pause your video and solve those 4. You would have gotten negative 7, negative 12, negative 2, negative 11. My math is correct. I'm going to skip to number 10 because it's a little different. Notice that there's no number out here. In the last video, we said if the number right there disappears, then the y-intercept is 0. So there doesn't always have to be a number right there. So in this case, you're just multiplying. So it's just negative 7, parentheses, 5, parentheses. No pluses or minuses after, like this is, or like that is. So negative 7 times 5, negative 35. Go ahead and try to pause and solve those 4. Negative 9 times negative 7 would be positive 63. positive 28, negative 49, negative 28. I'll leave the rest of this worksheet for you to do on your own. There's answers on the second page. Now, we talked about this in multiple videos. It's not always going to be a y right there. Remember, f of x is basically the same thing as a y. The difference is a y is always going to be a straight line. An f of x, which stands for function of x, means that it could be a straight line, but it doesn't have to be a straight line. It can be a curved line, and that goes all the way back to the first functions video when we were drawing curved lines and we were identifying what is and isn't a function. If you remember, functions can look like that. Linear equations are always going to be straight lines. So f of x is just treat it like it's a y. So you still got the x row. Instead of a y row, you just have an f of x. It's solved exactly the same way. So we just take this number, put it in for this. So negative 10, parentheses, minus 4. So plug that in on your calculator, make sure that's a negative, make sure that's a minus, and you should come up with negative 14. I'm going to let you solve the rest of these on your own. There's answers on the second sheet. Now sometimes it might be a little confusing because they turn the table sideways. It's still solved exactly the same way. It's just that instead of the x row being here, they put it horizontally, and the f of x or the y row being here, they put it horizontally on the bottom. So here's your function. It's just 5 times x. So for this one right here, we're just going to be doing 5 times negative 4. So 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. I'll leave those for the rest for you to do. Now, you might get a problem that is worked the same way, except you don't have input-output tables. They might just want one answer. And if they just want one answer, they're going to word it like this. So they're going to put f, stands for function, parentheses, negative 3, parentheses. All that means is if x, which normally goes there, was negative 3, what would your answer be? And this one, since it's an I, it's using, or a number 1, Roman numeral 1, it's using this function again, and so is this one. So our function is still f of x. So all they're wanting to know is if x was negative 3. So the way you solve this is 5, parentheses, negative 3. Just like this, except instead of the x, you put a negative 3. And you will get negative 15. So this is the same way, except they've written it a different way. They said, what is the value of f of x if x is negative 8? It's kind of tricky. It's the exact same thing as this. They're just writing it out here to the side. So again, x is negative 8, so x goes where? X goes there. So you would just do 5, parentheses, negative 8, and solve that. This one down here, I haven't seen anything like this before. Basically, they're combining 3 tables in one. So they're saying you're solving for negative 3, negative 2, and 4. And here's your function. So you would do negative 3 minus 11, and then you would do negative 2 minus 11. And you come over here and you'd use this function. So you'd use negative 7, parentheses, and then you'd use that same number again, negative 3 plus 1. And then over here, you would use negative 3 again, this time plus 8. So you would solve those. So that's just the problems. You need to write in the answers for all 9 of those. And there's answers on the second sheet. Now the most difficult one. This one. And I have seen problems exactly like this on the GED. Now, this is a preview because I didn't want to pay for it. So we're just going to work around the preview. So you see, you've got a function, you've got a missing f of x, you've got a missing x, missing f of x, missing x, missing f of x. So they want you to drag numbers in and drop them in these boxes on the GED. Now, so far, all we've done is solve this side. I haven't made you solve one of these yet. So I'm going to show you how that's going to look. We'll go ahead and do the -9. That's solved exactly the way we've been doing it. So you use your function up here, -2, parentheses, plug in your number, parentheses, +9. You would just simply type that in the calculator. That's going to be +18 plus 9, which is going to be 27. Now this one is different than what we've done so far because they're giving you the answer and wanting you to solve to see what x is. So if they're giving you, and this doesn't mean f of 11, this means f of x is 11. So that is actually going to go where that is on the equation. So you're going to have to write an equation and solve algebraically. 11 equals -2x plus 9. And to do these, you might have to watch an algebra video, but we're not going to cover that in here. We'll do it in a different video. But this is a two-step algebra problem. If you've ever done these before, you've got to solve for x, so you're going to be dealing with the right side. You always want to add or subtract the number on its own first. So for algebra, you do the opposite to get rid of it. So to get rid of a +9, you would subtract 9 from that side. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do the same thing to the other. These cancel out. You bring down your -2 and your x. You bring down your equals. You solve this. 11 minus 9 is 2. Then for your last step, you got to get rid of this -2. Divide by -2. That turns into 1, which just leaves x. Do the same thing on this side. Punch that on the calculator, 2 divided by -2, or you can put it in as a fraction, and you end up with -1, which is this. Now there is a different way to do it. If you want to do it this way, that's perfectly fine. This is the way I would do it. If you can't remember how to do it this way, what you can do is you can look at the answers, and they'll usually have little boxes. Like there'd be a box that said -1, and there'll be a row of them, probably about 8 answers, and they want you to grab this box and drag it and drop it. So you can try each of these numbers out in the x spot and see if you get 11 as an answer. And once you get 11, you know that that's going to be the x. So you would take this and drag it and drop it right there. There's 2 different ways to do it, whichever way is easiest for you. So let's do the 0. That's just going to be -2 times 0 plus 9, which is just going to be 9. We'll do one more of these. So this time they want you to do 1. So it's going to be just like this, except it's going to be 1 equals -2x plus 9. So first thing you do is subtract 9. Bring down your -2x equals 1 minus 9 is -8. Last step, divide by your -2. Bring down your x. -8 divided by -2 is just going to be 4. So your answer there is 4. And the last one is a normal one again. So -2, parentheses 10, plus 9. -2 times 10 is -20, plus 9 would be -11. And that would be that chart filled out. You've got answers to all these on the second page. These two, obviously, you're not going to be able to work, so there's just 3 to do here. Do all those. You won't be able to work this one right here, but you will be able to work this one down here. So do that one on your own, and that is the end of the video.